ナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツ。仏説無儒教がこひしむ浄土志願不満足性不上昇学がお無量公不偉大聖主不最小貧愚性不上昇学がし上仏道妙正定寺法苦境未所門政府上昇学利欲人少年Joya-e主凡行しぐ無常道一生伝人し人力 にこ不正無才道聖書三苦妙高最終薬難海一円無思考も安閉塞小悪道つ脱全主門高僧上満足イロジポ日がしうじきてん根不言主増高世苦毒法小大衆鎮世法死死苦供養一切仏具足修徳本願念信条満徳一三愛を女仏無下地津断未不正感学力と司祭小尊志願や国家大戦王感動国小天人願にし苦毒平等聖祭 平等正祭道本菩提心おうじょうあんなこ。ナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツナマンダツ。Please join me in Gassho. When sentient beings, upon hearing the Buddha's name, realize with an entrusting heart and joy, with even a single thought of the Buddha, direct their merits with sincere mind and aspire to be born in that land, they then all attain birth in that land and dwell in the stage of non-retrogression. Excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offenses and those who slander the right Dharma. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the last service of the year of 2020 at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple. And what a year it has been. Well, to summarize this year, we've seen a lot of sadness and heartache during this year. It's been a very tough ride for many of us. There were many cases, and I mean many cases, of social injustice that occurred, especially towards members of the Black community. The coronavirus pandemic was surging at an almost unstoppable rate, and now because of the lethal way of the virus, the death toll of this pandemic has reached a huge number. 343,000 deaths have occurred since the pandemic has started. There's also a tumultuous election that happened this year as well. Many people on both sides of the aisle, some were happy, others were not. And sadly, this divide seemed to not end with just the end of the election. For many, there were people who were very upset, people who were jubilant. It goes to show, in my personal opinion, the massive amounts of bonno and kleshas that people cling to during this lifetime. Sadly, for the Tacoma Buddhist Temple, we had to say goodbye to Reverend Dr. Takashi Miyagi. In the time that he was here, I know that he touched many of you and really brought an appreciation to the teaching of Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. Reverend Miyagi, if you're watching this, I certainly hope that I have done an okay job in following you. And that's another part about this tumultuous change of the year. Because of the pandemic, we've had to change the way we've done services. We've had to change the way we interact with people, right? No more hugging, no more handshakes. People can do the elbow bump, I suppose, but we have to wear masks. We have to social distance. Traveling home for the holidays was heavily discouraged and still is. And I'm certain that for many of us, I will certainly be interested to see tonight how they're going to do the Rocking New Year's Eve, because I'm certain while they're going to drop the huge ball, that there's not going to be this huge crowd in Times Square that people are used to. This year has been hard. Many people have lost their jobs. Many people have succumbed to the coronavirus. Many people are still sick with it. It has not been a good year. 2020 has not been a good year for many people. However, a new year is upon us. And again, I bring up the topic of New Year's resolutions. In my last Dharma talk, I talked about how sometimes we have these superficial New Year's resolutions where we say, oh, I'm going to exercise or I'm going to diet better, right? But I'd like to go back to the Gosandai that I quoted this morning. So everyone remembers basically, I think that the name of our temple in Kyoto is Nishi Honganji, right? And that term Honganji, right, or Hongan, literally means primal vow, right? Or the vow that Amida Buddha that we're really focusing on, right? So Amida Buddha's primal vow, that is the vow that is most important to our tradition. So if I had people in the audience, I would ask you, do you remember what the primal vow is? Do you remember what number? Dharma school students, this is for you. Okay, so remember, what does Hongan mean? Okay, Hongan means primal vow. Okay, and what number vow is that? In our sutra, the sutra that we follow, the translation that we follow, that vow is vow number 18. Okay, so once again, Hongan, primal vow, vow number 18. And do you remember what that primal vow is? Right, we have to recite it all the time in Japanese, but I will recite it to you in English. One of the translations for you in English, right? And one of the translation goes like this: if when I attain Buddhahood, the sentient beings of the 10 directions who sincerely wish to be born in my land, who sincerely say my name even 10 times, are not born in my land, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. Excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offenses and those who slander the right Dharma, right? So while that is a huge kind of chunk of words, okay, it's really central to our teachings because that vow alone, vow number 18, is the vow that basically proves that Bodhisattva Dharmakara, before Bodhisattva Dharmakara became Amida Buddha, set out to save all sentient beings. This is the Bodhisattva path, right? So all the beings in the 10 directions, if we sincerely wish to be born in Amida Buddha's Pure Land, and sincerely, our translation says say the name, right? So some people can say they think on the name or they say the name, but the way we say it is we say the name, even 10 times, right? With sincere mind, with sincere heart, with shinjin, right? And if we're not born in that land, Bodhisattva Dharmakara would not become Amida Buddha. So that is the severity to which this vow is important to us. And again, this I think speaks to why our tradition is still so popular, is that we realize that we are these bombu. We are these ordinary beings who are filled with kleshas, who are filled with afflictions, who are filled with tethers to this world. And we cannot hope to attain the ultimate awakening in this life, right? By ourselves, with our own power. It's just not possible. At least for me, it's not. I've seen many documentaries of many great Buddhist teachers, And for all I know, they are awakened beings. Some people look to the Dalai Lama this way. Others look to Thich Nhat Hanh this way. I, for one, am still much in admiration, and I know some of my other minister colleagues may scoff at this, but I am in high admiration of the monks who perform the Kaihogyo, or the 1,000, or the Sennichi Kaihogyo, the 1,000 days of walking around Mount Hiei, like all around Mount Hiei. And I've done this before. Not that I've done the 1,000 days, but I've walked the entirety from up to down of Mount Hiei. And I can't imagine doing that for more than one day at a time. Or for more, yeah, maybe like one day out of the, or a couple days out of the month, but that's it. I mean, doing that constantly and then having to starve yourself for 9 days with the do-iri, they call it. I mean, after a practitioner does this practice, they are supposed to be seen as living Buddhas, right? And after they're done, maybe they are. I don't know. But for me, I definitely cannot do that. I do not have the discipline, nor do I have, I think, the karmic history to perform such practices. And even if I did, right, even if I could, I don't think that I would attain the same supreme awakening that other beings may have been able to attain. And hence, why I must rely on Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion fully, 100%, tariki. However, all of that being said, that doesn't mean that I am encouraging us as Buddhists or as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists in our society to just kind of lay back and just sort of, sit in our long chairs and take in like all of life and just sort of let it go by, right? We can definitely be inspired by Amida Buddha's fulfillment of the vow. So the Gosandai that I read this morning, when sentient beings, upon hearing the Buddha's name, realize with an entrusting heart and joy, with even a single thought of the Buddha, direct their merits with sincere mind, and aspire to be born in that land, they then all attain birth in that land and dwell in the stage of non-retrogression. Excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offenses and those who slander the right Dharma. That quote comes from the second part of the larger sutra. So what that is, that's also known as the fulfillment passage, right? So first, Amida Buddha in the first part or Bodhisattva Dharmakara in the first part of the sutra says the vow. This is what I'm going to do, right? And then in the second part of the sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha tells the story of how this vow was fulfilled, or that the vow has been fulfilled. After 10 kalpas of hard training, 10 kalpas of constant birth and death, Bodhisattva Dharmakara was able to create the Pure Land. So we can be inspired by this. And I think a large part of it is for our lives here and now. While we can't attain our own enlightenment on our own in this lifetime, we can still play our part in this life to help flatten the curve of the pandemic, right? So just because I say, or the tenets of our teaching says that we can't attain enlightenment in this lifetime, we're not saying that means do nothing, right? Or that means do whatever you want, right? I think we still, in fact, if anything, these teachings help us to live our lives better in this life. Once again, we must realize that our actions and choices have an effect on the world around us. As the new year approaches us, let us deeply reflect on the story of Bodhisattva Dharmakara. Dharmakara's vows to save all sentient beings from an existence of suffering, and Dharmakara's transformation to become Amida Buddha. To me, this story is still extremely relevant to the times that we live in now. The story that reminds us again and again that the Dharma is working for our benefit, especially for ordinary beings like us, who without the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha could not hope to attain the ultimate enlightenment after we are born in Amida Buddha's Pure Land. So with that in mind, really think about what it means when Amida Buddha saves all of us sentient beings from this cycle of birth and death. I think us humans, we can really look at this year and just see the damage that has been caused by the pandemic. But sometimes, and I hate to say this, but truthfully say it as well, by our own actions. We ourselves as human beings have caused a lot of suffering amongst ourselves. And sometimes there are simple solutions to these problems, right? Wearing a mask, social distance, limit the amount of times that you go out, have to convert the times you hang out with your friends in Zoom meetings. Some of these solutions are very, very easy. Or at least logically speaking, they are very easy to do. But other times, the situation is not so easy to fix. We won't be able to turn off racism within this society with the flick of a switch. There are constant conversations that need to happen. There are hard truths that we have to look at in ourselves. And then we have to really be honest with ourselves when it comes to the part that we play in the systemic racism that is deeply embedded in our society. I know it's a little odd for me to talk about this. However, I think that now that the year of 2020 is almost over, it's really important for us to think about how we're going to play, or how we're going to act, and how we're going to conduct ourselves during this new year. What are we going to do? How are we going to help flatten the curve? Just because the new year comes around, it doesn't mean that the pandemic is just going to magically go away. Yes, vaccines are on the way, but it's still going to take a long time for us to all get vaccinated, for the vaccine to work, for all of us to really just help flatten this curve. It's going to take some time. And how soon we can get back to normal, whatever that may look like, is going to largely depend on the actions that we take. It's largely going to depend on how we treat each other. It's largely going to depend on our willingness to be able to make certain sacrifices of our own personal pleasures to realize the necessity of sometimes having to do things that we don't like to do, wearing a mask on our face, sheltering in our homes, right? I'm not trying to cause fear or say that, try to put us in this, you should always be inside and you should always be afraid or you should always live in fear. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that actions, again, always have consequences or have effects, right? Causes and effects. This is karma as well. So with this in mind, really think about how we're going to conduct ourselves in this new year. We really have to ask ourselves these hard questions. And I think we really have to look at the way we've acted in this past year as well, and really challenge ourselves and realize maybe we ourselves are not so innocent in the part that we had to play during this pandemic, or in the part that we had to play during the social unrest. But that being said, despite our actions, because we are ordinary beings, because we are bonbu, who are weighted with a lot of karmic baggage. I don't like to use the word evil too much because I think people look into that too much. But because of the karmic baggage that we've had, Amida Buddha is there for us. Amida Buddha is always with us. Amida Buddha is constantly with us when we say Namo Amida Butsu, when we think upon Amida Buddha. But when we think about Amida Buddha as well, how do we let that affect our lives? How do we let that affect us? Does that have any effect on the choices we make? Does it inspire us to try to be better, to try to do better in this lifetime now? Or does it just make you go, well, I'm glad that I am already saved and I can, pretty much do whatever I want because Amida Buddha is looking out for me? Shinran Shonin vehemently spoke against that type of thinking. So I'm sorry that I sound sort of preachy and that I sound sort of scolding in this new year. Usually, right, New Year's are supposed to be these happy events and these wonderful events where we get together with all these friends and probably go to a huge party somewhere and we ring in the new year with champagne, we pop the cork, right, pop, right, in 3, 2, 1, right, pop, and then we drink our champagne and we sing, should old acquaintance be forgot. And usually there's a lot of smiles, lots of people are kissing, or some people actually get proposed to. Unfortunately for this year, we're not going to see a lot of that. And in fact, we probably shouldn't see a lot of that. I mean, of course, now if you live together and you propose, that's totally fine. But this year, it's going to be very, very different. And it needs to be different. Things need to change, I think, in order to adapt to the times that we're in now. And during a time of a great pandemic, I'm sorry, but traditionally, huge gatherings of people partying in the new year or toasting in the new year is not a really good idea. So I hope all of you spend a wonderful New Year's Eve with your family that you live with in your own household, and that you all take this time to reflect on, as Buddhists, as Jodo Shinchu Buddhists, how are we going to conduct ourselves in the new year? What's the part that we're going to play? I think this is important for us to ask as Jodo Shinchu Buddhists. And with that in mind, I'd like to close and say once again that I wish you all a wonderful and healthy and safe 2021 as we close this year of 2020. And once again, I would like to close this time by rereading the quote from the larger sutra, because I think it is so important for us to hear at this time. So please join me in Gassho. When sentient beings, upon hearing the Buddha's name, realize an entrusting heart in joy with even a single thought of the Buddha, direct their merits with sincere mind, and aspire to be born in that land, they then all attain birth in that land and dwell in the stage of non-retrogression. Excluded are those who commit the 5 grave offenses and those who slander the right Dharma. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandats, 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 Namandats.